to the online session for Phonics 2026 Hong Kong. My name is Katie Coutsougera, and I am the conference organizer and administrator. You've probably spoken to me quite a bit via email. So to continue and to start today, I would like to introduce our first presentation, and it will be presented by Veronika and Tatiana. And their title is Prosodic Patterns in Male and Female Teacher Discourse, Evidence from Classroom Interaction Corpus Analysis. So, when you're ready, ladies, the floor is yours.
Hello, I'm ready. Tatiana?
Yes, I am ready.
Okay, so demonstrating the first slide. Okay.
Okay, hello everyone once again. We are representatives of Moscow City University, and today we're going to present our research on the relationship between prosody and pragmatic functions in Russian classroom discourse based on a corpus specifically compiled to train neural networks for evaluating teacher interaction competence. Next slide, please. Well, while teacher interaction competence is essential to teacher training, interaction quality assessment remains largely subjective. Existing annotated corpora of classroom speech focus primarily on linguistic dimensions, yet the issue of annotation, corpus annotation combining linguistic and pedagogical aspects to create a data set suitable for AI training remains unresolved. And this study analyzes the Russian classroom speech corpus designed to train neural networks to evaluate teacher interaction competence, focusing on the correlation between prosodic patterns in teacher discourse linked to the pragmatic functions. Next slide, please. And our study is guided by two central research questions. First, we ask, how do prosodic patterns correlate with the pragmatic functions of teacher discourse in Russian classroom corpus? In other words, can we identify systematic acoustic signatures that distinguish, for example, the utterance offering praise from one delivering instructions? Second, we investigate how does the realization of F0 range within the intonation phrase vary with nuclear tone and teacher interaction tactics? And does this variation differ between male and female Russian-speaking teachers? So this question probes not only the acoustic pragmatic link, but also the role of gender as a modulating factor. Next slide, please. So here we have two hypotheses of our research, and hypothesis one posits that prosodic patterns measured as F0 range, mean F0, and nuclear tone systematically correlate with pragmatic functions. Specifically, we predict that utterances performing affective functions, such as encouragement, praise, or emotional support, will exhibit a wider F0 range than utterances performing declarative or instructional functions. Hypothesis 2 proposes that the correlation between nuclear tone, discourse tactic, and F0 range is modulated by teacher gender. We expect that female teachers will demonstrate larger mean F0 and greater F0 range overall. And gender will interact with discourse tactic such that gender differences are most pronounced in functions requiring effective engagement, like praise or encouragement. Next slide, please. So to compile the corpus, we collected 10 hours of audio recordings of classroom interaction. 14 teachers and 171 Moscow City University students participated in this procedure, and 5 experts participated in the auditory expert analysis. To annotate the corpus, we designed a tagging system for 22 classroom interaction tactics and 7 nuclear tones. Next slide, please. So this study included collection and processing of audio recordings of 14 Russian-speaking teachers, annotation of speech samples, auditory expert analysis, and automatic data extraction. The 10 hours corpus was divided into shorter utterances, followed by adding tiers in PRAT, including orthographical transcription, nuclear tones, and interaction tactics. So I now pass the floor to Veronika, who is going to speak about the results of the research.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, let us now turn to the results. The first analysis concerned the distribution of nuclear tone contours in the corpus. The results show that both male and female teacher discourse is dominated by relatively simple contour types. Rising contours account for approximately 39% of all cases, falling contours for 30%, and level contours for 25%. All remaining contour types together represent only 6% of the corpus. Thus, teacher discourse appears to rely primarily on simple intonational configurations, while complex tones occur relatively rarely. So, to reveal the relationship between the mean values of the melodic range and the nature of the nuclear tone movement in men's and women's speech, a ranking of the mean melodic range values for each type of intonation phrase was conducted. The procedure included the following steps. Number one, the mean value of the melodic range was calculated for each type of intonation phrase. Then, the obtained values were ranked in descending order. Then, the difference between the mean values, this step was calculated. If the step was less than 10 Hz, the mean melodic range values were grouped into a single rank. 10 Hz threshold was introduced as an analytical criterion for ranking. Differences below this value were considered insufficient to justify separate ranks and therefore were grouped together. So the analysis revealed 5 ranks in both male and female speech. The widest melodic range was observed in rising falling contours and series of falling tones. For the intonation phrases with rising falling nuclear contours, F0 range reached approximately 156 Hz in female and 152 Hz in male speech, while for intonation phrases with series of falling nuclear contours, they amounted to 131 and 126 Hz respectively. The second rank included falling, rising, and rising contours with 138 Hz for women and 109 Hz for men, and rising contours with 142 Hz for women and 101 Hz for men. At the opposite end of the scale were level contours, which demonstrated the narrowest melodic range in intonation phrases in both groups, with 77 Hz for women and 63 Hz for men. These findings indicate a strong relationship between the shape of the nuclear contour and the extent of pitch variation within the intonation phrase. So then, the next question concerned the relationship between prosody and interaction tactics. Correlation analysis revealed an interesting pattern. No strong relationship was found between particular contour types and specific interaction tactics. In other words, the same tactic may be realized through different contour configurations. However, a strong relationship emerged between melodic range and interaction tactics. The widest melodic range associated with opinion accentuation, opposition, and provocation tactics. In contrast, transition and referring tactics were characterized by considerably narrow melodic ranges. Gender differences were also observed. For male teachers, the widest ranges occurred in opinion accentuation and provocation tactics, where for female teachers, the widest ranges were found in opposition and also in provocation tactics. So, several important observations can be drawn from these findings. First, teacher discourse is characterized by predominance of simple nuclear tones, particularly rising, falling, and level contours. Second, complex contours occur relatively rarely and are mainly associated with effective or argumentative communicative situations. Third, a strong relationship exists between melodic range and contour type. At the same time, contour type itself does not appear to be a reliable predictor of interaction tactics. Instead, melodic range shows a much stronger association with pragmatic function. Another important observation concerns gender differences. Female teachers generally demonstrate greater pitch variability and wider melodic ranges, while male teachers tend to employ more neutral prosodic realizations and use extreme pitch movements less frequently. Well, in addition to the quantitative analysis, we conducted a qualitative analysis of recurrent prosodic models associated with interaction tactics. The first model is associated with emphasis and motivation of thinking. As can be seen from the example, this pattern is characterized by strong prominence, extensive highlighting of lexical items, ascendant pitch scale, and either rising or falling nuclear tones. Such configurations appear to encourage cognitive engagement and focus students' attention on key information. So the second model is associated with gratitude and transition. These utterances frequently contain expressions such as thank you and direct forms of address. They are often realized with falling rising tones in relatively wide melodic ranges. The prosodic organization helps signal transition to the next stage of discussion. The third model corresponds to microsummary and refocusing tactics. Here we typically observe a level pitch scale combined with a faster tempo. Although nuclear tones may vary, the overall prosodic effect is one of discourse organization and efficient management of classroom attention. So the fourth model is associated with criticism. A notable feature of this pattern is the use of a special rise, particularly on evaluative lexical items or on the focus of the utterance. This configuration increases pragmatic salience and strengthens the communicative impact of critical remarks. Okay, I give the floor to Tatiana to finish the report.
Our study has a number of pedagogical implications, and among them is that prosodic patterns in classroom interaction should be viewed as flexible models, not rigid rules that shape how pragmatic meaning is acoustically realized. And to empower teachers to harness prosody's rhetorical potential power, explicit prosodic training must be integrated into teacher education. And furthermore, Corpus informed AI assessment offers a transformative pathway by providing objective, real-time, data-driven feedback on teacher interaction competence, bridging theory and practice in language teaching. Dear colleagues, we have finished our presentation. Thank you for attention, and if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much for your presentation, ladies, Tatiana and Veronika. Does anybody have any questions following up this presentation? Yeah, Carlos?
Yeah, I don't know whether I'm heard. Can
Yeah,
you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. So thank you very much for that talk. Very clear. And my question is really the following. It's obviously a descriptive study. So you have registered what people have done, what teachers are doing, while at the same time implying pedagogical consequences of the results. So that means either that you have considered the teachers that you have recorded as absolute models, or that you have other ways of extracting pedagogical information from the data. Could you comment on that aspect of things?
Okay, may I answer?
Yeah, Tatiana.
Yeah, okay. Veronika, could you please go back a little bit to the slide with the acknowledgements? I think it can help me.
Okay.
Okay.
This.
We started with the by saying that our study was motivated by the project we participated in. It is called Designing a Digital Service for Automatic Recognition of Teachers' Classroom Interaction Tactics. So this is a digital service integrated into Moscow City University's digital environment, right? That is going to automatically recognize and give some feedback, automatic feedback on teachers' interaction competence. But we see that sometimes teachers lack a proper competence, right, in this dimension. So we see that some pedagogical implications can that we can extend our study by providing some recommendations for teachers how they can enhance their competence in the classroom, interaction competence in the classroom. So it's not a purely linguistical research, purely phonetic, right? But still, the university we work at is pedagogical. So it's called Moscow City University, but it used to be called Moscow City Pedagogical University. So we're preparing future teachers, language teachers, right? So, and we shouldn't focus only on giving feedback, right? But teaching them how to sound properly. So, Mr. Gusenhoven, I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, I think so. Yeah. So it really means that you extract from these data instructional material.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Either on the basis of your judgment, oh, that's very good, or on the basis of the fact that the teachers were good teachers, because otherwise you have data by poor teachers that would not serve well as instructional material for beginning teachers.
Thank you.
Yes, we have such samples. The samples that we analyze sometimes show that not all teachers that we record can be used as good examples of teacher interaction competence. Yes, of course, but we do analyze them as, can I say so? I don't like this word, bad examples or anti-examples, right? If you understand me right.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Right, and we can still use them as in our teaching work as well, right? Showing students that the way they shouldn't speak.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Very interesting and very challenging and useful task. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Interesting questions and answers. Let's move on to presentation number 2. I can see she's been here for a little while, Milena Milenova.
Yes.
You just want to see if you can share your screen for us, please.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And where are you today? Can I just ask?
Hello from Bulgaria, Sofia.
Ooh, very nice. Hello from Romania.
We're very close. Can you see my presentation now?
We can, yeah. You just want to put it into slideshow mode, okay?
Is it okay now?
Yeah.
I can't see your faces, but now you can see my presentation, right? Okay.
Yeah, this is the important thing. We can see everything.
Okay. Shall I proceed?
Well, let me just give you a quick introduction and then it will be over to yourself.
Okay, I'm a junior researcher at the Sofia University in Bulgarian. I teach modern Greek to the students of the Department of Modern Greek Studies. And I investigate their interlanguage phonology. And today I will present some aspects of their interlanguage phonology and how pronunciation training works with these features. And it is also part of my ongoing PhD study at the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. And that's all about me.
Okay, then let's go. Looking forward.
Okay, so I'm sorry, but with this okay, so the interlanguage phonology of Bulgarian learners of modern Greek displays two very salient features, namely the stopping of the interdental fricatives and their substitution with t and d, and the realization of unstressed o as u due to the phonological vowel reduction, which is mandatory in Bulgarian. So the theoretical background of my study is the speech learning model and by Flege and its revised version by Flege and Bonn, which posit that phonetic similarity between L2 and L1 sounds correlates inversely with learnability, and the overall postulation of the speech learning model is that similar sounds and similar phenomena are more challenging for learners. When learners have to acquire new sounds, actually they have to establish new phonetic categories, like in the case with the learning of the interdentals by Bulgarian learners. And the acquisition of similar sounds involves modification of existing categories or modification of the L1 realization. In our case, the modification of the L1 realization pattern of unstressed O. So the aim of the present study is to investigate the relative difficulty related to the phonetic learning of the interdental fricatives, which do not have phonemic status in Bulgarian, and actually the unlearning of the L1 unstressed vowel reduction of the vowel O. So to this end, a pre-test, post-test production experiment was conducted. The participants, we had a experimental group of Bulgarian learners and a control group of 12 native modern Greek speakers. So at the pre-test, the learners had received approximately 102 hours of instruction in modern Greek without any pronunciation training. This is our time one. And at the post-test, they had received another 120 hours of instruction in modern Greek, including 15 pronunciation training sessions. The pronunciation training was the same for all target categories, namely it included explicit articulatory instruction, identification tasks, repetition and imitation of oral models with self-recording, self-assessment, guided and freer communicative activities incorporating the target segments. So for the production experiment, the elicitation protocol was based on a read aloud task with words embedded in a carrier sentence. The stimuli for the interdentals were real words embedded in carrier phrases, in a carrier phrase, with the target sounds in initial and medial syllables in the 5 vowel contexts that are common to Bulgarian and modern Greek in stressed and unstressed syllables. And the stimuli for unstressed O were the symmetrical dissyllables popo and popo and pupu and pupu. Actually, these are nonce words, but we chose them in order to explore how they will produce the unstressed O and compare it with U. So the data analysis was done in prod. It was based on auditory cues, spectrographic analysis, and measurements of acoustic parameters. For the interdentals, the measurement was the mean spectral distribution. And for the unstressed O, we measured the first and the second formant, The statistical procedures employed were chi-square tests for the investigation of the realization of the interdentals, and mixed design ANOVAs were used for the examination of the acoustic parameters. So these are our results for the voiceless interdentals, the realization at time 1 and time 2. We can see that at time 1, even at time 1, there were some correct productions, probably because most of the learners had already studied English. When they started to learn modern Greek, they had already studied English. So probably because of their knowledge of English, some of them produced target-like realization of the voiceless interdental. We see that at time 1, the realizations were, the number of correct realizations were substantially improved. And here are the results for the measurements of the spectral mean of the center of gravity. We see that in oval context, the productions at time 1 approximated the native speakers. There was no significant difference in the spectral mean. The results for the voiced interdental show a slightly similar picture, apart from the fact that at time 1 the incorrect productions were more than compared to the voiceless interdental, which is not surprising because the voiced interdental is quite a demanding sound. But at time 2, after the pronunciation training and after the recordings, the time 2 recordings were at the end of the academic semester, the number of correct realizations increased significantly. And in terms of phonetic features, the accurate productions reached the spectral mean of the native speakers. So, but what happens the summary of the findings for the interdentals are that we observed a significant decrease in substitutions at time 1 and increase in correct fricative realizations. We observed that some learners produced the interdentals even at time 1, but importantly, this was not consistent. And the spectral mean values of the learners' productions reached the spectral mean values of the Greek speakers. So phonetic learning for the interdentals was successful. So what happens with the unstressed O? Here we can see in the first graph, we can see the productions of the unstressed O at time 1. And we can see that the unstressed O produced by the learner, which is in blue, largely overlaps with the U vowel. The productions at time 2 show a similar pattern in terms of raising. We can see that still at time 1, after the pronunciation training, the learners still produced unstressed O, raising it significantly. However, there is a slight trend for changes in the F2 dimension, probably producing it with more front articulation, but still it was perceived as an U. And the measurements of the formants of the F1 formants were not statistically significant, and neither did for the second formant. So we saw that at both time 1 and time 2, unstressed was realized as U, and okay, there was a trend for change in the F2 dimension, but overall, no phonetic learning was observed for the unstressed O. And our findings suggest that the learning of new L2 sounds appears to be easier in line with the speech learning model. it seems to be easier for learners to establish a new phonetic category, even for the interdental fricatives, which are difficult sounds, and they pose difficulties to many learners with different L1 backgrounds. But the unlearning of an L1 phonological rule related to word stress appears to be more challenging. And that's it. Thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation. Does anybody have any questions for Milena? Okay, if nobody has any questions, we'll move on to the next presentation, which is presentation 3. So I have provided co-host sharing abilities, and we should have Aswathi, internal variation as a dialectal marker, a case of Malayalam. Are you there?
Can I start?
Yes, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aswathi, and I'm from Department of Linguistics, Central University of Kerala, India. Today, I'm delighted to present my paper titled Intonational Variation as a Dialectal Marker, a Case of Malayalam. And Malayalam is a Dravidian language spoken by approximately 38 million people, primarily in Kerala, a southern state of India. Despite its rich linguistic diversity, the prosodic dimensions of these dialects, particularly intonation, remains largely understudied. And language variation is a universal feature of natural human languages, and speakers from geographically distinct regions possess differences in phonological, lexical, and prosodic behavior. And the core idea of this research is, suppose I'm a person from one of the districts of Kerala. When I come across a person from other district of Kerala, I'll be able to know his place. I'll be able to know know his place from his utterances, from the intonation pattern of that particular person. The study assumes that such dialectal cues will be evident in the long-term residence of that particular place. A strong dialectal background will be there in their speech. That is what the study is focused. And the background of my research, the studies on theoretical aspects, practical implementations were done. A research on rhythm and intonation in Malayalam analyzed the intonation of sentence types using an auto-segmental metrical model. And another study which was published on 2017 also states about the reading speech or the controlled speech. Intonation identity in dialect has been explored from a socio-phonetic perspective, focusing on how pitch patterns contribute dialect identity of 3 coastal dialects of Ernakulam. Major studies were focused on reading speech or controlled speech. None of them were focused on spontaneous speech. Although previous studies have examined stress, rhythm, and intonation in Malayalam, most of them have relied primarily on controlled or read speech data. The use of spontaneous speech for analyzing dialectal intonation pattern remains largely unexplored. So the present study, the following are the objectives: examining the acoustic intonational characteristics of spontaneous speech spoken in the central areas of Thrissur and Palakkad. Thrissur and Palakkad are the central districts of Kerala. And later on, I'll depicting them as TCR and PKD. Identify how the intonational systems of 2 district varieties differ from one another, and which specific parameters show the most consistent and robust inter-district differences. So the method, around 8 adult male Malayalam speakers aged between 50 to 60 years were recruited from the central urban areas of Thrissur as well as Palakkad based on the factors age, occupation, background. Defining selection criterion was that each speaker had lived in or very close to the center of their respective city for approximately 50 years, ensuring that their speech represented a strongly locally embedded dialect variety. Individuals belonged to highly professional sectors, and those exhibiting predominantly formal speech styles were discarded from the study to ensure naturalness of the collection. All speakers reported no speech, language, or hearing impairments. Spontaneous speech data were elicited using thematic domains that included daily routines, festivals, occupation activities, food practices, educational experiences, and leisure activities. I should say that the data elicitation method was the hardest part of this research because spontaneous data elicitation was a tiring task. And I spent around 8 months and I could only get limited data that would help my research. And the recording and pre-processing, the samples were collected using a Zoom H4 essential digital recorder at the sampling rate of 44,100 hertz and bit depth of 16 PCM in a naturalistic setting. The distance between the microphone and the speaker was not maintained at a constant level. That was one of the limitations. And this variability in recording distance is acknowledged. And files were then imported to Audacity for segmentation, and Path software was used for annotation. And I used a 4-tier text grid system. And this is a sentence which states that my name is Siju. And in Malayalam, it will pronounce like this, Ende pere Siju. And this is a sentence articulated by a Thrissur speaker. And another one is Ende pere Unnikrishna, the same sentence. My name is Unnikrishna. This is a sentence articulated by a Palakkad person. And here is the descriptive. Here is the small sample comparison between the two samples. And moving to my result, as I said earlier, this is a preliminary approach to the research. And the goal was to establish a methodology and identify the acoustic parameters worth tracking in larger follow-up corpus. And the findings are the tendencies, not statistical conclusions. So the descriptive analysis revealed noticeable differences between two dialect groups. Thrissur speakers exhibited a higher mean F0 than Palakkad speakers, indicating that relatively higher pitched register of adult male speakers of Thrissur dialect. Thrissur speakers also followed a wider F0 range compared to Palakkad speakers, suggesting a great melodic variation in intonation counters. Furthermore, the speech rate of Thrissur speakers was higher than that of Palakkad, and the lower minimum F0 observed in TCR relative to Palakkad additionally contributed to a wider pitch span. These are preliminary observations derived from the small sample, and they present descriptive tendencies observed in the data set. Further inferential statistical analysis is required to determine the statistical significance. Yeah, and moving to the discussion, this finding suggests that intonation functions as a systematic and theoretically interpretable cue to regional dialect identity in Malayalam, consistent with what has been documented in other dialect pairs. For instance, the higher pitch register and wider F0 range in Thrissur speech may reflect both intrinsic prosodic properties of the dialect and socio-linguistic factors, such as Thrissur's role as a cultural and commercial hub, environments known to correlate with more expressive prosodic behavior, and Palakkad variety shaped by historical contact with Tamil, a language with a distinct prosodic typology. shows a comparatively flatter and slower intonation profile. Methodologically, this study demonstrates that spontaneous speech data, despite its analytical challenges, yields rich and ecologically valid intonational patterns that read speech data would likely suppress. And conclusion, the study investigated the intonation pattern by analyzing mean F0 range, maximum and minimum F0, the utterance duration and speech rate. The results reveal the principal areas of dialectal differentiation. These findings indicate that intonation is a systematic and theoretically interpretable cue to regional dialect identity in Malayalam. The study provides a foundation for the future work involving large speaker samples, multiple sentence types, perceptual experiments, and a broader dialectal atlas of Malayalam intonation encompassing the full range of regional varieties across Kerala. And these are the references. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your presentation. I can see Carlos is eager. He has his hand up already. So ask your question, Carlos.
Yes, thank you very much for a very clear presentation. So I understand that the main differences between the two groups are phonetic. So in Esther Grabe's research and also in research by Judith Hansen on Dutch, it was also found that the frequency of particular pitch accents was lowered or raised in the two in one of the two dialects, meaning that the frequency of use of particular intonation patterns could vary across the dialects. So I understand there is no variation between different pitch accents in your data, which is in a sense also an interesting finding if that is the case. So it's not a question, it's just an observation. And another non-question is the expression of my not quite understanding the correlation that's often found between high pitch and high speech tempo, both in perception and in production, as you find. I have no idea why that should occur, but it's interesting to see that it also occurs in your data. So these are comments rather than questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you for your comments, Carlos. Okay, then, so the next presentation is online presentation 4. And so, okay, so this is Photini. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
That's correct.
And she will be presenting her research on a phonetics workbook for undergraduate students of English phonetics with L1 Greek background. So the floor is yours. Over to you.
Thank you so much. I must start by warning you that this is not a phonetics presentation. My talk was going to be included in the pronunciation conference that was scheduled to be to take place in Greece back in earlier in the year. So it's not a phonetics presentation, as I said, and it lies in the realm of pedagogy of phonetics, essentially. So it aims to present the features and goals of the new phonetics workbook, which is intended for undergraduate students of English phonetics with an L1 Greek background. So it is designed in 2 parts, and the first part is devoted to the features and goals of the book, and the second part, I am presenting the second part actual excerpts from the new book. So this is a tool that could potentially serve to help university students understand the phonetics and phonology of English with an emphasis on prosody in more depth and through practice. It offers essentially practice. An important feature of the workbook is that it identifies problem areas for students with an L1 Greek background, for example, vowel reduction in unstressed syllables, examining also the correspondence between orthography and pronunciation. And the two languages have completely different orthographic systems, with the English one being opaque and therefore presenting problems to L1 Greek learners of English. And also students as well. I'll explain what the difference between the two is in a second. Now, the problem areas for Greek speakers are identified as problem areas in the realm of phonetic, in the realm of segmentals, and also prosody, and finally problems stemming from orthography. Now, this is for the future. A simpler version of this workbook aspires to be a useful and meaningful tool for L1 Greek learners of English or English teachers, but this is for the future. My focus will be on university students. So the goals of this workbook are the following. It is organized in short lessons, first of all. So the theory is given briefly at the beginning of each chapter, and the emphasis is given on practice, different drills and exercises and different types of activities to put the theory into practice. So it is designed to help students develop and improve their transcription skills, to better understand the segmentals of English, as I said, better understand the prosody of English, to acquire a good understanding of the internal structure and complexity of the English syllable, and understand the rules that determine the legal onsets and the phonotactics of English, the legal onset and codas of the language. And finally, acquire a good understanding of the metrical structure of English. Now, as far as the segmentals of English are concerned, the problem areas lie in the vowels of English. So we have a vowel system on the one hand, and a vowel system of 20 vowels. If you take RP or 16 vowels, from 16 to 20 vowels, depending on the variety of English. So mainly it's the vowels, also the stops as far as consonants are concerned, the lack of glottal sounds, such as the glottal fricative or the glottal stop, which is very useful for British varieties, etc., etc. There are quite a few problem areas. As far as prosody is concerned, the problem areas lie in vowel reduction, in unstressed syllables, vowel reduction in function words as well, and secondary stress placement and placement of secondary stress. There are a lot of other issues, but these are some prominent ones. So the contents, the consonants of English, the vowels of English, vowels and consonants in context. And additionally, it heavily focuses on the prosody of English, as I said, stress placement in words and phrases, so word versus phrasal stress, stress placement in phrasal verbs and compounds, stress shifts, and in phrasal stress, and primary versus secondary stress assignment. The book uses educational games to help with learning these patterns, and we have followed. I have included different references in the bibliography. This is one of my favorite ones, Saunders and I don't argue that educational games are exceptional tools for teaching phonetics and phonology, in particular, and other disciplines of linguistics as well. They're easy to implement in the classroom. Adaptations of existing games is the easiest option. Also, you can adapt existing games, and simple and sophisticated versions for each game can be used as well. So this is an example of a game that I have implemented in my classes. This is a grid with all the consonants of English. So we have the consonantal system of English, which are largely the same in all varieties of English, with very, very few exceptions, unlike the vowels of English. So we have across the top of the table all our vowels, and vertically as well as, consonants, and they are organized into stops, fricatives, affricates, nasals, and liquids. Unfortunately, I realized just before the presentation that my semivowels are missing from the table. Apologies for that. And they're color coordinated as well. So a lot of different things can be done here. For example, students can be asked to fill in the grid. And what I usually do in my classes is I ask half of my students to fill in the grid by combining stops and affricates, and half of them to combine the grid by combining obstruents more generally and sonorants. And of course, it takes so much more time for the second number of students to fill in the grid, because all the legal combinations of clusters include obstruents and sonorants as second members. So this is an example how this grid can be used. Also, I use it to focus on clusters with a palatal glide, which do not exist in North American varieties, Duke versus Duke, etc., or whether these are real clusters, and then we can, extend this conversation to other issues. So this is just an example here. Another example, this is a funny one. Guess the variety of English spoken by the author. And this is a children's book, and based on the rhyming of the words, we can exclude Northern American varieties here. So the author cannot be a speaker of North American varieties. North American, I meant, not Northern, since door and saw and claw rhyme, for example. So this is just another example. There are a lot of things that could be said on that, but I actually have very little time to discuss all that. And now since English consists of a large number of different varieties spoken in different parts of the world, a dilemma was which variety we would use. General American for and Canadian English for North American, but which variety out of the varieties spoken in Britain? There is the dilemma of using RP, which is spoken by a very small minority of British speakers, versus Southern British English, standard British English. The problem is that our acclaimed dictionaries use a notational system which for RP, so we are very familiar with all those symbols from the Longman Pronunciation Dictionary or the Cambridge Pronouncing Dictionary, but all these vowels do not represent Southern British English. There is a marvelous dictionary, Cube, by Jeff Lindsay, which we chose to use. And therefore, we chose to do both, to use RP and Southern British English, and also include a chapter on different geographical varieties of English, with very, a much smaller one. So we view transcription as a vital component in the teaching of phonetics, as well as speech therapy, language pathology as well. And so the transcription as a tool constitutes a large part of the textbook. So this is an example here. This is an excerpt from Dostoevsky's The Brothers Karamazov. And we have a phonemic transcription, and this is RP, as you can see. The same passage transcribed into using general American notational symbols here. And what can we do with these examples of transcription? For example, focusing on the fact that students of English with an L1 Greek background, they merge the bath, strut, and trap vowels. You can, for example, ask them to supply those vowels. So the only vowels that are missing from here are those vowels and nothing else. And they're asked to supply them. Another thing that could be done is to, for example, simply ask them to supply stress marks for primary and secondary stress. As I said earlier on, secondary stress is an area, it's a problem area for these students. So this is just another example. I have a lot of examples here that I won't be able to go over, since I have very little time. The book uses passages from novels, poems. There's no pop culture, it's simply classical novels and poems, as I said, which are transcribed into different varieties of English. And we have the orthographic renditions as well. It's phonetic transcription as well. There's a very small chapter, as I said, which uses very much smaller passages where you have a rendition of the same passage in Liverpudlian English, Australian English, Scottish English, etc., etc. And I'll just move on very quickly to from segmentals to suprasegmentals and syllable structure, for example. One type of exercise.
Apologies. Could I just highlight that time has, if you could get to we're 15 minutes in now. So if you could.
Yes, I know. I have. So this one type of exercise which focuses on syllable structure. We take one monosyllabic word and you break it down into as many other monosyllabic words that exist in English to show the different types, syllable types you can have in English. Same type of thing is here, taking a word like thought and breaking it down into thought and ought and or, etc., with the relevant syllable trees. Language games like this one, Verlan, where you reverse syllables, keeping the stress in the same place. Why can you not play this game in English? Because you have to reduce vowels, and if you cannot retain the stress and reduce the vowel. Now, metrical structure find words with these patterns, cabbage with one primary stress on the first syllable, balloon, one primary stress on the final syllable, 14 secondary and primary stress, etc., etc. Also highlighting differences between different varieties. So General American, we have words, nouns and adjectives ending in ori, where you have different patterns, stress patterns, stress retraction in nouns ending in French loan words like ballet, etc., etc. There are many different categories that the workbook uses. Now, metrical structure focusing on where morphology is also included, and attachment of different types of affixes from different strata, from lexical phonology, and why you can have one type of suffixes attached to your roots, but not the other one. Lots of metrical trees and grids, etc., etc. And finally, orthography, the orthographic A, which is rendered differently in North American English and differently in British English. A focus on pre-rhotic vowels as a merge, a significant merging in North American English in pre-rhotic vowels. Pre-rhotic vowels, depending on syllable structure here, or long or in the when they are in the coda one. Originally there would be a coda there, which is deleted, and a short or when they're followed by in the onset position, etc., etc. I will have to stop here. This is these are different notational systems that we introduce in the book. We take them into consideration along with the ones proposed by the two acclaimed dictionaries, the Longman and the Cambridge one. And finally, some references here. I'm sorry I had to rush towards the end. Please, if you have any questions, ask me. There's a lot more that I could have said about this workbook, but due to time limitations, restrictions, I'll have to stop here. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation. Very interesting. I would be interested to see what you have to say about the Liverpudlian accent. I myself am Mancunian. No, I'm definitely British, and so I find the accents
wonderful.
of the UK quite bizarre. No, go to Newcastle, I understand nothing.
Oh, Geordie.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I have no Mancunian in my workbook. In the I basically use sources from varieties of English that have been studied in the illustrations of the IPA series. So Mancunian English is not there, I'm afraid.
Oh, it's fine. All you have to do is remove the T. That's what we do in Manchester. So it's not water, it's water.
Oh, yes, with a gloss off.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm aware of the time. We do only have a couple more presentations, so I'm very happy to open the floor if anybody does have any questions for this presentation. Does anybody have any questions? I can't see the name, but HK Lam, if you want to ask the question, you have your
Yes,
hand
can I
up.
ask Can I ask a question, please?
Yeah, sure.
Hello. So thank you very much for Professor for sharing this knowledge to us. I'm really inspired by the part of guess the variety of the English spoken by the author with Harry McClary. So I'm going to tell you that I learned so much, and I will use the Gruffalo word writing game by Julia Donaldson in my future interpreting classes. Yes, because I was so inspired for that. I really hope that we have more time to learn from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very kind. Yes. I have a large number of books, children's books, that proved to be very useful for my research and for my classes. So, yes, this is one of them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your presentation, and we will move on to the next, so online presentation number 5. We're going to be having a look at L2 prosodic features in automatic accent classification with Leonidas Silva Jr. Over to yourself. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much for the organization and the attention for trying to fit the time. I'm in Brazil right now. It's 4:15. I mean, a little bit more than 4:15. So let's present our research, or part of our research, which is L2 prosodic features in AS. In this case, automatic accent classification. So I'm Leonidas or Leonidas Silva Jr., and we keep moving forward. So as in the introduction, where we covered a little bit about accent, which is pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm patterns that index a speaker's linguistic background. And the L2 speech often remains under the L1 influence, according to studies we have been seeing since Professor Selinker in the 70s until the speech learning models revised version recently. And the extended speech remains challenging for ASR systems, the automatic speech recognition systems, because of variation and multidimensional of acoustic features. Here we're going to focus on prosody, but we have absolutely more variables. And this study investigates how L2 prosodic features of duration, F0, and intensity contribute to automatic accent classification. I like to call special attention to the word intensity, because here we'll consider intensity as a whole, like spectral qualities, phonatory qualities, at least for the sake of this presentation. So everything that deals with intensity in terms of short-term variation and long-term variation, or long-term aspects of intensity and short terms as well, we'll consider all here as intensity. So these are our hypotheses. We got 2H1, the multidimensionality, that accent classification depends on a set of prosodic cues, not only one in isolation or not only one feature. So machines could work better with a multidimensional set of prosodic features. And these features can be ranked in an importance level by a series of techniques. We're going to bring one of them here. But the model performance can be interpreted through a ranking of these prosodic predictors. So these are aims to examine how prosodic features influence automatic classification of foreign accents, especially here L2 English produced by Brazilian Portuguese speakers, to identify which prosodic acoustic parameters from the ones I just said are significantly distinguished native and non-native speech, and to determine the relative contribution of the acoustic features to accent classification performance. So if time permits, we also will explore a little, or at least see some, at least in the first glance, to reflect on how it can be applied, such as ASR systems, forensic phonetics, and L2 pronunciation teaching. So this is an overview of I'm sorry, of prosody. More specifically, we're going to get a zoom into voice quality as a core key, since we will consider here besides the parameters, the acoustic parameters of voice quality, we consider voice quality here as a whole dimension of interaction in between prosodic characteristics or prosodic domains. So this is central to foreign accent perception and may contribute more robustly than some segmental cues. And the voice quality, the VQ, and indexes the speaker-specific and L1 influence phonatory settings. In this study, VQ is treated not as a static trait, but as a dynamic function, both in perception, although we're not going to bring perception analysis. We're running this experiment. This is an ongoing work in between the interaction of rhythm, pitch, and loudness, and time variation, F0, and intensity parameters in terms of acoustic production of these parameters. So this is how accent is actually built in this architecture. Well, the L2 prosody is Brazilian speakers. For Brazilian Portuguese speakers, L2 English prosody may reflect transfer from L1 rhythmic, melodic, intensive, and phonatory patterns. The classical rhythm metrics and prosodic acoustic descriptors provide measurable cues to L1, L2 differences. We have a bunch of work since Professor Hamu and colleagues in 1999 with the classical rhythm metrics. This is not our focus today. We're going to focus specifically on the set of prosodic acoustic parameters, but out of the rhythm metrics, at least for now. And the study aims to integrate experimental phonetics and interpretable computational modeling. So this is our methodology. We have a quantitative experimental cross-group design, speech levels. This is part, this presentation is part of a broader project that we've run here in Brazil that include native English for a while, Brazilian speakers of English as L2E, and Brazilian Portuguese as well. But for today, we're going to bring just a binary classification in between accents. In like 0 would be a foreign or native, and 1 would be a foreign or a native as well. All right. And the participants, we got 16 speakers, 8 Americans, and 8 Brazilians, 50 male and female. For the sake of this, the frame of this project, at this part of the research, we tried to be very strict with this split in terms of speakers and samples to try to test, the algorithms for classification. And Brazilian participants were B2, C1 English proficient. And our data were, the data set had 160 controlled read speech samples, 80 native, 80 L1 English speakers, 80 produced by Brazilian speakers in between Brazilian Portuguese and L2 English. So for the acoustic processing, we ran the Prosodic protocol, which the pipeline is right here. We forced aligned in webmals. We also had manual correction, and then the VV unit alignment. This is a reprocessor of these units from webmals and prot, and speech rhythm extractor, which is a script that extracts around 70 acoustic parameters, including rhythm metrics and the prosodic acoustic parameters that significantly were in terms of statistics that were for our research, and then we're going to bring them today. The statistical procedures, we ran an R, Kruskal-Wallis test, and the feature domains were the F0 duration and intensity, as in terms of melodic, temporal, and spectral characteristics. So this is our methodology for the accent classification procedures. We built the system in Python, and the classifiers were based in prosodic features. The classical 80-20% train test split at sample level, where we train and test the data set for seeing the predictions that in the 20%. 6 machine learning models applied in the train test phases. You can see here in the blue, in the flow chart below, there is a blue, the third one from the left to right. And we had random forest, decision tree, k-nearest neighbors, linear discriminant analysis, support vector machine, and naive Bayes Gaussian naive Bayes. The grid search for model tuning, we used this for the combination of model parameters to find the best performance for classifying acoustic features. So this is an exhaustive search that the algorithm does in the characteristics, speaker sample by sample, combining everything in a multi-dimensional form. The evaluation, we just use accuracy and error rate. And the feature importance was determined by Guinea impurity reduction scores, which is how much each feature helps the model reduce classification uncertainty, revealing which acoustic cues are more informative. So it makes a ranking of which from the statistically significant characteristics were the most important in terms of scoring them from 0 to 1. And then it takes a distribution of weights under these for these characteristics. So these are inferential results. Not maybe for the sake of time, we're not going to focus very much on each plot and then talk, but in the y-axis, we have as the script extract, we get the tag of the script. And on the top of each panel, we have the kind of interpretation of what each parameter is. If you can see, these speech rate and articulation rate are in a rectangle because we'll need this explanation later. So this is our classification report. These are our confusion matrix. I'm sorry. And we got random forest panel A with 100% of accuracy. So it hits everything, all the 16 native as the 16 foreign. We got the left diagonal. We have the rights and the hits, and the red one, we get the wrong values. And B, C, and E, decision tree, k-nearest neighbors, and support vector machine, we got over 90% of accuracy. The linear discriminant analysis, we got here over 80%. And Gaussian naive Bayes, we got over 70%. We also have when we run this program, it returns an audio file explaining each algorithm which is used, although if we want to implement more, so it explains everything by audio as well. But we're not going to play it here for the sake of time. And this is the feature importance, especially in the ensemble models for the ones that we have here in red and violet. So it considered that shimmer, harmonic to noise ratio, and intensity variation coefficient, as well as mean duration of pause, were the most important parameters in here. It really hits this part, these inferential statistics. By the way, calculation is totally different, but there is a convergence here in our data. And except by speech rate and articulation rate in the inferential statistics, we got here pause rate and spectral emphasis that the machine considered different from the inferential statistics. So our H1 and H2 are supported. Classification is best interpreted if we have an integration of these acoustic parameters and the H2 as well. There's also the dominant features are intensity and spectral based measures, duration in second, and F0 based more discretely. And prosodic domains therefore contribute with different weights. And why intensity and voice quality dominate? They reflect phonatory settings that are less consciously controlled and more resistant to short-term adjustments. Duration as a structural marker, it's very strong in Brazilian studies. Duration and is a very strong marker for Brazilian speakers in any language we talk as a foreign language. Pauses, speech rate, articulation rate, capture temporal organization of L1 rhythmic transfer, and the limited role of F0 appears less stable here, and maybe it is possibly there's a lot of repetition, I'm sorry, because pitch patterns are more flexible and more learnable by B2 C1. So these are final remarks. Prosody is central to automatic accent classification. In this reading task, the main hierarchy was intensity, duration, and then F0. Multidimensional has to be considered and included into this kind of studies. How-to prosody should be incorporated to ASR, forensic phonetics, and pronunciation teaching, although we didn't have a lot of time to talk here for the sake of, but you can see in the slide for the sake of time. And our ongoing work is the development of speaker-independent samples, so the system would be more robust and accurate in terms of determining speaking. Neural networks model comparisons, the exploration of prosodic boundaries, segmental and prosodic feature interaction, and larger data set, and the implementation of fully automated acoustic processing protocol. So these are knowledges for the grant. Thank you very much for the committee. Really, it was congratulations on the event. Very important for our area. These are our references, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you for your presentation. Very interesting. I want to open the floor up to see if anybody has any questions. Carlos, ask your question, please.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Thank you for being able to speak. So I was particularly struck by the inclusion of voice quality in your list of item or features that determine a foreign accent. I was thinking of that also in the context of the previous speaker, because when I hear Greek speakers speak English, one of the most noticeable things is that the voice quality is not English. It's not breathy, not creaky. It's sort of hypermodal and loud, which is somehow uncharacteristic of at least British English, but probably also American English. So you found effects in H2, H1 measures. Could you summarize to what extent Brazilian Portuguese voice quality influences the foreignness of Brazilians speaking English?
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you very much for helping me with the screen. I was a little confused here.
I can see you moving around.
Yeah. Professor Carlos, thank you very much for your questions. In fact, the question was how voice quality influence English productions, how Brazilian speakers, Brazilian Portuguese voice quality influence Brazilian productions, right? In fact, in Brazilian Portuguese, voice quality tends to be usually, for example, the harmonics part overcome in instead of noise. For example, we do not have this variation or glottalization when we use to talk like this. So if I were speaking with a more Brazilian accent, I maybe talk like this. That is totally different. My voice tends to go higher all the time, and then this would make a difference in the time I talk because my phonatory system will suffer a little. And then I have to put a lot of effort right here to lower my larynx and then project the voice over the head. And then it goes like this. So we do not have this kind of movements even in any variety of Brazilian Portuguese. And then we used to transfer this even when speaking Spanish, for example, which is kind of closer language and very close, but we do not have this kind of movements. And this is reflected into phonatory patterns and phonatory parameters as well, such as shimmer, jitter, and so on and so forth. This is incredible because we feel like every time you raise your pitch to talk, and then you start talking like this, and then changing a little bit and changing the rhythm, and then trying to speak a little bit more syllabic, and then we go like this, and this is, well, we can call this Brazilian speakers. This is very groovy.
Yeah, but it's interesting. Your work, puts that aspect of speech in the center of attention and as a focus of attention. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you. Such a great pleasure meeting you here. I met you last time in Brazil in 2013 in Maceió, which is very close to my town.
Was that in Berlin?
Yeah. Was that in Maceió, Alagoas?
Oh, Maceió. Oh, yes. No, I remember Maceió. Yeah. Yeah. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
We have gone over just a touch, so apologies for anybody who sat up in the middle of the night. I know we have a couple of these. We have one presentation left and then session closing, so please bear with us. And so I've seen this lady, here she is. So presentation number 6, Kumudri. I hope I'm saying it okay. So I have given you co-host abilities, so if you can just see if you can share your screen, please.
Thank you very much. I hope I can be heard.
Yeah, we can see you. You're looking good. We can hear you.
Thank you very much. And thank you so much for joining my talk today. I know it's been a long day for everyone, so I'll try my best to be on time.
It's not a problem. Ursa, you're the last presentation. It's looking good. We can see your screen. It's looking very fancy. So let's begin. So this presentation is machine learning analysis of Sinhala vowel length perception. So over to yourself, and thank you.
Thank you very much. So it's very interesting because the previous presentation was also very similar to the approach that I'm taking to today's topic, but instead I'm using the XGBoost algorithm. But anyways, hi, my name is Kumudri Gunadilaka, and I'm a master's student from the University of Aizu in Japan. And as just stated, I'm going to be talking about how I use machine learning to analyze the singular vowel length perception by Japanese listeners. So let's get to it. So a quick overview of my study. I'm actually working off a previous study that I did, which is actually, well, almost the same topic, but instead it focused on a more traditional statistic analysis approach rather than using machine learning for analysis. And as the title says, pretty straightforward, it focuses on the phonemic vowel inventories of Japanese and Sinhala. So why Japanese and Sinhala in particular? I'm going to show you on the next slide, actually, is the fact that we do share 5 similar vowels. As you can see here, we have the A, we have the A, we have the E, we have the O, we have the U, but the Sinhala U is a bit different compared to the Japanese U is a bit different compared to the Sinhala U. But interestingly, Sinhala also has an additional vowel called the A vowel. So what I predicted in my initial study was the fact that, first of all, Japanese listeners should perceive the similar the vowels that are shared between both inventories. The Japanese listeners should be able to perceive it quicker, and they should perceive it with much more ease than this outlying vowel over here. And especially if, and since both Sinhala vowels as well as Japanese vowels have short and long vowel comparatively, they should be able to perceive it with a bit of ease. And this brings me to the part where I actually use machine learning as a diagnostic tool to help analyze the results, not just as a predictive tool, but rather as a diagnostic tool. Because usually when it comes to traditional statistics, they kind of struggle when variables are highly correlated. But we can take this a step further and understand about how the variables would really interact with each other to give the final results on accuracy and reaction time by using machine learning. So like I mentioned before, we implemented an XGBoost model, and this actually helped us tackle the issue of high correlated variables because machine learning tends to handle collinearity naturally. In fact, it tries to pinpoint the influence of all the variables rather than just averaging them out, which is commonly noticed when it comes to standard descriptive statistics. But with the XGBoost, there comes one limitation, which is the black box, where you don't understand what's happening on the inside, but all you get is an output. But we can actually tackle this issue by using SHAP values. The SHAP values actually help us look into the algorithm. It helps us open this black box and shows the exact step-by-step influence per variable the model has taken on its final decision. So moving on to the first model. So speaking about the dependent variable and the independent variables I used, the dependent variable or the target was focusing on whether the listener got the trial correct or not. As for the independent variables, which were the inputs to my model, it fed the model a mix of linguistic features, cognitive task data, and demographics. And with this, we came up with this confusion matrix. So at a glance, looking into testing, we trained the model and then we evaluated it on a subset of entirely unseen data. And we balanced the data set by randomly sampling, so to ensure that there's an equal split of correct and incorrect responses. And with this, we actually had a really great performance of 70.3 balanced accuracy, significantly great performance, really. And with a baseline of exactly 50%, so a 50% no information rate, this actually means that it has an equal chance of guessing correct or incorrect. And like I mentioned, we had a great rate of success. And another thing I'd like to point out is the fact that specificity, which was 75%, was greater than sensitivity, 65.6%, which means that all in all, this model was better at predicting incorrect, whether the person would get it wrong, rather than getting it correct. So taking a quick look at the features which the model considered to kind of predict accuracy. And over here we have a feature importance chart, and it's ranked by what the model considers most important to the least important when trying to figure out and when trying to predict accuracy. As you can see, origin is almost negligible, gender is not important, but in the top three, we have reaction time, we have the trial number, or the order of the trial, and the vowel, whether it was R, whether it was A, whether it was E. And an interesting point I'd like to highlight was that with trial, usually if you consider a traditional linear regression, it would have just shown a straight flat line for trial, suggesting that there's zero correlation. But our machine learning model actually captured the fact that there is a nonlinear practice and a fatigue effect. But to really understand what goes into effect, to understand the black box behind this outcome in what's important in predicting accuracy, we had to take a look at the SHAP values. So I got you a nice little colorful diagram here. So looking at reaction time, but actually before looking at reaction time, to understand the overall plot, we have accuracy on the right and inaccuracy on the left. With reaction time, we have accuracy linked with low reaction time. So this kind of aligned with my first hypothesis, where Japanese listeners who can easily perceive a vowel would probably have faster or less reaction times to that particular vowel. So that's why we see a huge cluster over here compared to, and this side would probably represent the A vowel because of the low accuracy and low reaction times. As for trials, we see on the left that there is a mixture of yellow and purple trials, which indicate early and late trials, whereas on the right, it's a mixture of mid-toned colored dots, which indicates that there's a clear learning curve and followed by eventual fatigue curve. So we have the initial and the end here and the middle trials here. So a nice little linear pattern over there. Then interestingly, we can also see the categories of vowels here. So we have, at the low accuracy, we have this particular group, which is probably the A vowel. And on the right here, we have two distinct clusters, which could probably represent two vowels, which whose F1 and F2 values were quite similar for both phonemic vowel inventories, which had the Japanese listeners perceive it correctly or with high accuracy in general. Participants, this can be ignored because it's quite a random distribution because the participants were randomly assigned. And of course, age, quite interesting. On the right, we have younger participants, and on the left, we have older participants. So meaning younger participants most likely tended to have greater accuracy. Vowel type, on the left, we have short vowels, And on the right, we have long vowels, which makes sense because the longer vowels will be much easier to perceive than the shorter vowels. And origin, this is quite funny actually. But on the right, we have Japanese listeners, and on the left, we have Sinhala listeners. But I also want to quickly note the fact that we had a very small sample size in general, and there were less Sinhala listeners than Japanese listeners. So I'm pretty sure if we replicated this study with a greater sample size, the results would almost be an equal over here. So moving on to model 2. So this model focuses on reaction time, decision speed, how quickly they made the decision technically. And it measured how hard the listeners had to think before categorizing unfamiliar sounds. And as you can see on the screen, it did remarkably well for behavioral data, giving us a 42.3% variance rate. And just as a consideration, and the traditional models in fact confirm variables like age, participant baseline, and so on were statistically significant. But once again, to understand how these variables interacted with each other and gave our final outcome as is, we can see with the feature importance which features the model considered or prioritized to predict reaction time. And it's a massive shift from our previous feature importance chart for model 1, because as you can see, age is the leading factor here, followed by participant number, trial, and then other secondary variables that also influence the final decision. But let's take a quick look at how these decisions came to place. So looking at age, once again, seeing how, just a quick briefing how the plot is working. On the right, we have greater reaction time, which means that they were slower. And on the left, they have lower reaction time, which means they were faster. And over here, we have a nice little clump to the right of age here, which could probably indicate that these were older participants who took longer to react because they dealt with more cognitive load compared to the younger participants on this side. As for participants, once again, very random, but at a glance, what we can understand here is that there is individual variability, where some participants were just much faster and some participants were just slower in general. As for trial, we can see a clear fatigue effect because at the end, the reaction time gets much slower compared to the start and the middle areas where they were quite faster. And then vowel groups, once again, we see a bunch of clusters. And over here, we see a nice segment. And this could most likely represent the A vowel again because it has a longer reaction time. And gender, as you can guess, they were quite equal. Vowel type is also distributed equally. Origin, in general, the Japanese speakers were much slower than the Sinhala speakers or the Sinhala listeners. And this brings me to my discussion slide, where my hypothesis 1 and hypothesis 2 of the study were once again proven true because the Japanese did indeed show a high accuracy of 94% in perceiving shared phonemic vowels, and they had the unfamiliar A vowel resulted in lower accuracy and longer processing time in general. And this also goes on to validate the PEM model, which is where the Japanese people, when they were met with an unfamiliar vowel, they try to map it to their existing vowel inventory. And in the process of that, it also led to them perceiving even familiar vowels a bit inaccurately or a bit inefficiently, because now they have a little mix-up of, oh, there's this unfamiliar vowel, which I'm trying to perceive correctly. But there are also these other vowels, which I know, but they're kind of starting to sound like the unfamiliar vowel. So that is also another interesting point we came up with. And which brings me to my overall conclusion about using machine learning as a diagnostic tool in my study. So XGBoost managed to overcome the limitation of standard traditional descriptive statistics by managing multicollinearity in the dataset. And given the cues where we have feature importance, we were able to identify which features actually influence the final decision the most. And we managed to even take it a step further, looking into the black box caused by the XGBoost by taking a look at the sharp values that visualize nonlinear realities. And this in turn shows how predictive models can be repurposed to explain complex human behavior. And I strongly believe that this framework would provide a new, robust method for researchers to bypass multicollinearity in complex behavioral data. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Very good. That was a very good presentation. No, very polished.
Thank
Anybody
you.
have any questions as a follow-up? Yeah, if you want to ask your question, Leone?
Oh, all right. Can you hear me?
We can, yeah.
Yes,
Oh, thank you very much. Congratulations on your presentation. By the way,
thank you.
great.
Thank you very
I've
much. It means a
been
lot.
actually using SHAP at this time. I've been, I just brought here Guinea, but SHAP is amazing, although, the graphics and all that part of explanation itself in more details. So my question is, in fact, about your conclusion. You just said that, using 8G boosting would bring a clearer scenario than actually traditional statistics. But so if we consider, for example, have you ever thought about the possibility of besides 8G boosting, considering the Bayesian statistics or even classic frequentist statistics in terms of comparison, because DHG boosting is traditionally used for machines, but comparing this to Bayesian models or other nonlinear models such as GAMS and all that kind of statistics that we have, don't you think we would have maybe some nice, at least results to be compared? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the question. So the reason I mainly went ahead with XGBoost was because it works on older data, and it then learns from its mistake from the previous versions and then builds up on it. And I thought it would be a better approach when it comes to behavioral data, because it tends to be very unpredictable, where suddenly you find a whole new pattern that just wasn't there in the previous versions. And of course, I did try out a few other decision-based models as well, but XGBoost happened to work the best for me. And but I am totally open in trying out new methods as well, because like you said, this is the first time, and I'm also still very new to the verse of machine learning. We created it to mainly try and test the non-traditional purpose for a non-traditional approach to it. Because initially when I did this study, it was just mainly, yes, I used R on a very basic standard traditional level and so on. And then I got to learn about XGBoost, and that's when I started applying it. And it was much more interesting to see how the variables actually affected each other. But this is, of course, just the start. And I'm completely open in seeing how it performs with other types of algorithms, whether it performs better, whether it performs worse. So yes, definitely open for testing. But thank you very much. That's a wonderful suggestion.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions as we move to the session close? No, everybody is happy. Well, thank you everybody for your presentations.
Thank you.
I'm now going to pass to Wentz, if she is here.
Hi, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me well?
We can hear you. We can see
Yeah,
your
that's great.
presentation
Yeah,
screen.
yeah. And actually, I'd like to show some pictures that we have taken yesterday.
Oh, great. I'm
Yeah.
interested.
Okay. So, yeah, good afternoon, everyone, again. I'm Dr. Wiensley, Conference Chair. As we bring Phonetics 2026 Hong Kong to a close, let us take a moment to reflect on the rich exchange of ideas over these 2 days. From the thought-provoking keynote lectures by Professor Carlos Gusenhoven, Professor Jette Hansen-Alberts, and Professor Patrick Wong, as you can see from the pictures too. Yeah, to the wide-ranging presentations on intonation, accent, second language acquisition, and AI in phonetics, this conference has highlighted both the depth and the forward momentum of our field. Across both in-person and online sessions, we have explored how phonetics continues to evolve, bridging theoretical insights into technological innovation and education practice. The discussions on multilingual speech, prosodic variation, and machine learning reflect a field that is increasingly interdisciplinary and impactful. So on behalf of my organizing committee, thank you for your contributions, your engagement, and your commitment to advancing phonetic research. And it has been a pleasure bringing this community together once again. And may I take this opportunity to thank our distinguished guests, Professor Guofang Li and Ms. Zubin Rashma Ruvida, our keynote speakers, Professor Carlos Gusenhoven, Professor Jette Hansen Edwards, and Professor Patrick Wong on site yesterday, and online presenters today, and also our conference participants, no matter you're doing it online or on site, and our colleagues, and also the General Chair, Antonets, botanist as well, and also today's online session chair, Katie Pizburga, and from the International Linguistic Society, and also our division head, Dr. S. Tong, and the organizing committee, including Dr. Edward Wen and Dr. Franco Wong, Dr. Hong Yin, and our dedicated colleagues from the Division Office of Languages and Communication of Poly UCPCE, our MC yesterday, and also the student helpers. And special thanks to our co-host, of course, the International Linguistic Society, and our college, Poly UCPCE, for the generous support. So we look forward to continuing these conversations and to welcoming you again at the future gatherings of the International Linguistic Society. Thank you.
Thank you, Wentz. Somebody has their hand up, I saw there. No, it's gone back down. You have some great pictures there. I recognize a number of the individuals from previous conferences. Very nice. I'm glad it was very successful yesterday. So thank you, everybody, for joining the on-site and online for Phonetics 2026. Carlos, you have something you want to say?
Well, I'd just like to make sure that we can't take leave without thanking the organization and Professor Winch Lai for this generous and pleasant organization that was obvious during 2 days. So this second day, of course, is what it was. But even the first day was a delight to attend. Thank you, organizational team, and thank you, Professor Lai.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor Gusenhofen. We had a great night actually yesterday. So we also had a social gathering, and also we went to a pub and restaurant.
I believe yesterday. Was there dancing? I thought I heard there was some dancing.
There were dancing. Yeah, there were dancing in the social gathering, and also a performance singing. Okay, and then afterwards we went for a drink and some snacks. So yeah, we had a great night.
Very good. Okay, then. So thank you, obviously, from the committee, from the society, to all of the keynotes. But a special thank you to everybody who has submitted. Without you, with your abstracts and registrations, we wouldn't be able to hold these conferences. And it's really important to keep the door open for innovation and to keep a community alive. So thank you so much from us as the society. I hope to see you hopefully next time, and goodbye, I suppose. And also from Milena, who you can see she is here. She is one of our moderators as well. So thank you from everybody here, and we hope to see you again next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.